What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be going over quickly how to go over basic battery knowledge and terminology, and we're going to go over how to charge batteries correctly and safely so that you don't get any scary battery fires and so that you feel comfortable charging these batteries and generally using them for your trucks. Coming up in this video. Let's get to it. All right, so we're going to jump right into this with just some battery basics and going over what each battery is and how to determine what each battery is, basically. So we'll go over the cell rating first. So you have your 2S battery. An easy way to determine what cell rating the battery is to look at the voltage. 2S batteries are generally around the 7.4 volt. 3S batteries are generally around the 11.1 volt. And 4S batteries are normally around the 14.8 volt. Now, another way to determine what cell rating the battery is literally just by looking at the side of it. So if you have soft packs, you should be able to see the different cells in the battery. Another way is to look at the balance port. So minus the red wire, each cell has its own black wire coming to the balance port. So this one has 4 black wires, which means it's a 4S battery. This one is a 2S battery. It only has 2 black wires. Now, that's an easy way to tell what cell rating the battery is. So, milliamp hour. Milliamp hour is generally how big of a storage does the battery have built in. So the higher the milliamp hour means that basically the more runtime you have. Think of it like the fuel tank on your car. The bigger the number, the bigger the fuel tank, the more runtime you have. Now that changes with different batteries. So I have a 1000 3S, I have a 1800 3S, I have a 850 3S, I have a 650 4S, 220 or 200 2200 2S, and so on. So all that changes. So the milliamp hour size is basically just how much can the battery run at a given length of time. Now, another thing you have to look for is the C rating. The C rating of each battery is basically determines how much punch the battery has. So the higher the C rating, the more of a sudden force of energy the battery can discharge. So if your milliamp hour is your fuel tank, think of your C rating like the fuel line going to the engine. The bigger the fuel line, the bigger the C rating, the more power the battery can push out. So that is important to know when you're looking at batteries and you're wanting something that has a lot more punch to it. Like if you're building a competition crawler, you generally want a little bit higher of a C rating so that if you're crawling up something that requires a sudden burst of wheel speed to get up over it, you can have that coming out of the battery and it's not going to hurt the battery. So if the C rating is the fuel line and the milliamp hour is the fuel tank, what is the cell rating? The cell rating would be easily described as the octane of fuel. So if you're not familiar with that, in fuel types you have lower, medium, high grade, and then so on fuels, which directly indicate how spicy the fuel is, how efficient of a burn the fuel is. So with these, the C rating of each battery determines that. So a 2S would be like a 87 octane, kind of like a regular fuel. Your 3S would be more like a mid-grade octane, 89, something like that. And then your 4S would be like a 91 or 92 octane fuel. So that's an easy way to determine what battery you need, is just think of it like a fuel tank and fuel type for your car. Easy way of thinking about it. So now that we've established that, I want to go over how to determine if a battery is good or not. Now, most people determine the battery based off of how much swelling a battery generally has. And I do have an example of a battery that is swollen a little bit. You can kind of see that it has a bit of a swelling and it's a little squishy on the top. So in my own experience, I will say that a swollen battery doesn't necessarily mean that it's about to explode. It really depends on how much you charge, how do you store it when it's charged, and so on, determines the length of a battery and how much life you can get out of it. So I only use soft pack batteries. If you're into using hard pack batteries, it'd be a little bit harder to tell when your battery is actually starting to swell up. That's why I use soft pack batteries. You can see this is a brand new 4S battery, and it's completely flat. Brand new. This one, this 3S, has a little bit of time on it. After a couple cycles, the battery will generally swell. So a little bit of swelling doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. Good way of thinking of it is, if it's to the point where you can easily roll it right over to the flat, it's time to discharge the battery and safely dispose of it. Okay? Don't just throw it in the trash can. All right? So like I said, this is an easy way to tell if a battery is bad or not. This amount of swelling, I generally still use this battery, and it's perfectly fine. It depends on how you charge it and how you use the battery. A lot of the times, what will make the battery life generally shorten is how many times do you punch the battery? How many times do you all of a sudden give it full beans to get up over something? The more times you fully discharge a battery at max, the less of a lifespan the battery generally has. Easy way of thinking of it. Now, if you're using a battery, this is my trail battery. This is my oldest battery here. This is the oldest battery here. It has the most charge cycles and the most runtime on multiple different vehicles. This battery right here has very minimal swelling because in my trail trucks, I don't do a whole lot of punching. These batteries were my comp truck battery for a long time where I did have to use a lot of punch. That's why these batteries are a little swollen. So that's an easy way to determine, or easy way to deter, battery life being shortened is basically limit how many times you're punching the battery to max power. So next, I want to go over some basic charging aspects. So this is a simple charger. This is not my main charger. This is a simple charger that most of you might get if you get into the hobby right away. You might find something like this for around the $30 to $40 mark, and it might be the best choice for you to get. And here's the reason why. It has multiple different charge parameters for each battery or type, and then you have the different amperage rating. Now this one also has balance port. When you get a charger, you really want to make sure that you get one that has balance ports. Charging just through the main lead is an easy way to charge the battery and sometimes does charge faster. However, charging through the balance point will ensure that the cells remain equal to each other as they charge, which will generally extend battery life. Now, this charger here has a couple different settings for amperages. So what do you do with that? So basically, what you would want to do is select an amperage similar to the battery milliamp hour. So the milliamp hour, if you put a point in front of the 100, that translates to amperage, basically. So this 2200 milliamp hour battery is basically a 2.2 amp. So how would you charge this? I would say you set it to the 2. Now, what that means is just because it's less than the milliamp hour doesn't mean that it won't charge the battery to full. It just means that it will charge it slightly slower. But it will charge it all the way to full. So what do you do when the battery is super small, like one of these? So this charger can do 4S, but this battery is only a 650 milliamp hour battery. Generally, what I would say is I would remove this charger. I would get something a little bit better. This charger here is the charger that I use for all of my batteries currently. It has multiple different settings to charge and discharge the battery and to even store the battery. So that is something that I would choose because you can go in and change the milliamp hour as low as you can go. So what would you want to do if you only had this charger but you had a smaller battery? So I would say set it to the lowest amperage rating and keep an eye on the heat. You really want to keep an eye on the heat because if you're charging at an amperage that's higher than the milliamp hour of the battery, it's going to get the battery slightly hot. It's going to charge it very fast, but it's going to get the battery quite hot. So keep an eye on that. Keep it away from anything flammable. Get a lipo bag and cover the battery in the lipo bag while you're charging so that it keeps the battery safe and keeps your house or your belongings safe that might be nearby. Battery fires are a serious thing, and lipo batteries have been known to take away people's houses. So it is very important to make sure that you are not only charging the battery correctly, but storing the battery correctly. So how do you store the battery correctly? We'll get into that right now. So how do you charge a battery to store it? So this charger has a really nice function where it actually has a storage feature on it. So basically all you would have to do is find the lipo, go into it, and then it gives you all the different charging parameters. You would just select storage, you would select your S rating, right? And then you would select your milliamp hour, and then you would select start. And what that's going to do is it's going to charge the battery somewhere around the 75, 80, 85% of the charge and keep it to where it's not all the way charged, but not flat. You really don't want to run lipos all the way flat, or any battery for that matter, because there is a possibility, even with lipos, that the battery might not rebound back and charge all the way in the future. So if you don't have a charger like this, how do you store the battery? So if you have a battery charger similar to this one, how do you keep the battery storage charged and to where it's safe? So what I would say is, at this point, if you don't have a charger that can do a storage charge, don't charge it after the use. Now, your trucks generally have what's called a built-in lipo cutoff on the ESC or the motor 2-in-1, whatever you have. It has a lipo cutoff, and what that does is it will allow the battery to discharge while you're driving to a certain point and then shut it off. Now, that point might be different from most trucks, but generally, like, I'm going to use this Hobbywing controller here, or a program card, to show you what I mean. So this has a function of battery cutoff voltage. You never want to put it to disabled on any truck or any ESC or electronic. I normally keep mine on medium. Medium is somewhere around the 20%. Now, you really don't want to discharge the battery all the way to begin with, even down to 20%, but when you're out there having fun, it tends to happen. I do it a lot. Now, when I do have a battery that is dead, it's not actually dead because of that cutoff. Now, what that means is that you could probably take that battery while it's dead and safely store it, because it's not all the way flat, so the battery is not going to die, but it's not fully charged and at risk of fire. So you never want to store a battery while it's fully charged. It could be very dangerous for the battery to be sitting, especially for a long time, while at its full max capacity charge. So you really don't want to do that. And there you have it, guys. I want to quickly say that lipo fires and other battery type fires in the hobby are a very serious phenomena that does happen. It doesn't happen all the time. It might not even happen to you. I've personally never had a lipo fire happen. So it really just depends on your knowledge and how you use, store, and take care of your batteries so that you get the most life and have a safe kind of experience with the batteries during the hobby. So that's the whole purpose of this video, is to share knowledge of batteries, the different battery types, how to determine what each battery is, how to break down all the little features that they say that they have, and how to store and charge batteries safely throughout the whole process of your hobby experience. So thank you guys for watching again. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to hit the button, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching.